Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Voices of Forestry podcast. I'm your host, Seth Stevenson, the communications coordinator with the Arkansas Forestry Association. And this month, we are going to be discussing the topic of logging, just one of the many parts of the forestry process. And joining me today, I have Larry Baccarosa, the head of the Arkansas Timber Producers Association. Larry, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Seth. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and appreciate all that you guys do.
Thank you. Well, let's kind of hop right into it, Larry. Explain to us who you are. What is your role within the Arkansas Timber Producers Association?
I'm the executive director of the Arkansas Timber Producers Association, which is a nonprofit trade association that represents the logging and timber producing side of the industry. We were incorporated in April of 1991, so we're a fairly young organization. I came on board in June of 92. What I thought then was a temporary position, and I've been there now.
Isn't that always the case? That you think it's temporary, and then years pass.
So here what I'm coming up on 28 years in June, I guess. So we've been there. I've been there that long, and so it's. But our association represents primarily independent logging contractors, but we do have associate membership, equipment dealers, insurance companies, and that type. Our focus is on small business issues, workers' comp, weight limits, that type of thing when you talk about legislative and regulatory issues. So that's kind of who we are.
Right? And that kind of brings up something kind of interesting, is that most of the loggers out there are these small businesses, correct?
Correct. The average logging operation probably around 5 employees or so, 5 to 10. But you do have larger operations, but in the majority, they're going to be the smaller type, 5 to 10 employee type operations. In some cases, they're one employee. We may talk later about this. We do a certification program for workers' comp insurance, where if a client meets the requirements for mechanized logging according to an insurance classification code, that we're the certified agent for that. And we've been doing certification. I'll get an application in for that and be one employee. And I think state law only requires 3 to have workers' comp, but the advantage to doing that would be a more competitive and a better rate on their workers' comp compared to the regular logging rate. But that's I kind of got off on the side.
No, that's great.
That's kind of I've seen one, and then you can go up to 30, 40, 50.
Well, I bring that up because we talk a lot about bigger companies within the forestry process, but these guys and gals out there are really just kind of a small team who work like a well-oiled machine out there.
That's right. There, years and years ago, there were company logging operations where the logging operations were strictly part of a timber company. And then I don't know historically what year this all transpired, but eventually I think because from the company side it got to be an issue with a cost issue. With insurance and that type of thing, they did have to do. So anyway, the independent loggers evolved, and they're incorporated, they're partnerships or whatever. But a lot of times their office is in their home, and some have staff or a separate office. But most of what I've seen over the years are family-oriented, family operations that they do what they do because they love the profession that they do, because they could be 12 hours on or whatever. They put up with all, not just the weather issues, but all DOT, OSHA, all the regulations that you have to comply with. So it is a big operation, and administratively a lot of things that these folks have to keep up with. So, but in the meantime, they're trying to produce wood to bring to the market.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's interesting because I just learned this when I started at AFA, but I've got some family up north in northern Arkansas. They are, I guess, independent contractors when it comes to logging. Yes. But it was just the dad and the 2 sons out there just knocking it out.
Yeah, and that's another good point you bring up, because the concern now across the nation, or not just in Arkansas, is what they call generational logging, where the operation is passed on from grandfather to son and on down. That's happening more and more infrequently. We do have one board member, Bo Jones, who's the grandson of Sonny Jones, who I think is an AFA member, but he was our first president. And so you've had that going on where Sonny, the granddad, had it passed to him, and he passed his son and on down. So that's an example of that, but you don't see that very often. Sure don't.
Interesting. Well, let's back up a little bit here.
Sure.
This is all good stuff, but ATPA, Arkansas Timber Producers Association, we'll keep it short because it's a bit of a mouthful. ATPA. But ATPA is essentially similar to AFA, but for the logging community, as in...
That's right.
Yeah.
And originally when this happened back, it was not a rift or anything opposed to AFA. It was just at that point in time that when this happened, I wasn't here that year, but workers' comp was the primary concern. That's what brought this organization together. And it wasn't that AFA could not do it. It's just the incorporators felt like we can speak up a little better and voice our own concern independently like we can now. So all these years, we have worked very, very close with AFA throughout the years, and we complement each other. So for example, during the legislative session, Max and I, and before him, Kelly Robbins, and we might focus on some issues where we'd take the lead if it was more specific, like I mentioned a while ago, to a smaller business type concern where AFA would be supportive, or then AFA might have other positions and we'd be. So we complement each other and support each other both ways. But it was not an effort to break away. It was just an effort to have another organization that focused solely on the issues that I mentioned a while ago. Primarily, again, workers' comp. Back then, the rates were tremendously high. So that's primarily what brought these guys together, was that particular crisis at that time.
Yeah, so it's not I guess we should reiterate, it's not a Hatfield and McCoy situation.
No.
It's a strength in numbers
that's
situation.
Exactly right. I mean, when it comes to legislative issues, we have a team. And I'm on AFA's Governmental Affairs Committee, so we work together. And so we have the companies, we have AFA, we have ATPA, and we all get out there as a forest industry group or partnership, I should say. So it's been that way all these years, and it's been a good working relationship, sure has.
Well, let's go into, I guess, the process, if you don't mind, logging. This may sound like a dumb question, but if you could kind of give us an idea of what all of this process entails.
Well, as far as production, companies contract with either private landowners, in some cases that might be a majority of who own the timberland in Arkansas. And in most cases, it's working for a major timber company, where they work hand in hand with that company to set up particular jobs that they're going to work on, their contractual relationships. They're given a certain amount of tonnage or production that they need to make, and then they haul for that particular company from the point of severance to the mill. And so that involves either chipping operations or log pulpwood or long, regular log productions as well. So you have that relationship, and then again, you might have a private landowner. Like, for example, you might have some timberland and want to hire a contractor to come in and do that. So they do those two types of different relationships.
And it's a pretty good-sized operation most times, just in the few that I've seen.
Yes. But the bigger operations can be hauling upwards to 40, 50 loads a week. And it depends. Of course, now with we're going to talk about the COVID-19 issue, but I mean that's impacted production to a certain extent. But generally, they're going to be hauling to make it. They have to haul a large number of loads to pay employees and for transportation costs and fuel costs and that type of thing. And in most cases, contractors try to maintain the crew they have for consistency so that they've got a more efficient operation. And what they don't want to do is have to keep hiring somebody new all the time and bringing in new people to work. So it's important that they have a consistent relationship with whoever they're working for on production, so that they can keep those crews busy and have them working all the time.
Now, when we talked to our logger of the year last year, Kevin Jester, that was something that I heard him talk about a lot, was seeking out certain guys to bring back to his operations time and time again, because he trusts them, he knows how they work, and he knows what they're going to do.
That, and then because when you're putting someone in a piece of equipment that may cost $250,000, you need someone that's going to be alert every morning that he comes out there. So most of it these days is fully mechanized. cabin closures. Back in the day, they didn't have that. They're air conditioned, but they're computer operated joystick type operations. So, it's not like it used to be years ago with chainsaw operations. That's done, but very minimally. As a matter of fact, the mechanized logging certification I mentioned a while ago for workers' comp is focused on primarily mechanized logging, and only a certain percentage of chainsaws can be used, and that's only for occasional type delimbing. So you've got to have efficient, people that can come in and work that type of equipment, because they not only have salaries and wages, they got equipment costs and there's repair work, maintenance, and all that. So if you've got the same people doing those jobs, then you don't have to retrain all the time. So that helps.
So that brings me to my next point that I wanted to talk about. Is logging isn't something you just hand a guy a chainsaw and say, drop him off in the woods and say, go at it. No. There's a lot of education behind all this. There
is, and part of that includes through our training program. We have what's called the ARC Pro Logger Education and Training Program, which we've been doing since 1995. And we have 4 modules in that training program. One's a safety, timber harvesting and transportation safety. We have a business management module. We have a BMP module and environmental considerations. So those last 2, modules 3 and 4, focus on environmental issues. The other 2, the one's the safety, on truck safety and better safe operations in the woods. And the second one, business management, we try to bring in business-oriented people, whether it's CPAs or financial planners or whatever, to give the contractor and his or her spouse, whoever's keeping the books, for example, we try to bring in that type of expertise to give them that type of information. Now, when it comes to equipment training, we don't have a particular module for that, so the equipment training a lot of times is done by the contractor, however he gets that person trained up. What I wanted to mention a while ago about the change and I heard this at a meeting last year, was that there's trying to get more and more people in the industry, especially in the logging side. And one comment made was the mindset has been, 20 or however many years later, that these are chainsaw toting type folks out there. And the mindset needs to be changed, where you're getting into a nice piece of equipment that's, as I mentioned a while ago, computer operated, joystick. It's a total different operation in the woods than what it used to be years ago. That was mentioned, I thought, interesting, because it was set in the vein of trying to recruit new people into the industry. Instead of thinking about how it used to be, this is what it is now. So
yeah, I guess the typical stereotypical lumberjack thing hasn't helped you guys a whole lot over the years.
That's not that. It's trust me, I've got members who got master's degrees, and other, higher education degrees, but they chose this profession to go into. It's not the majority, I guess, but most, they're not, even if they don't have the college degrees, they're highly efficient operators and smart business people, and they have to be to survive. So they're not... there's very few chainsaw operations, except when you get in the hardwood or some areas where you can't use the equipment. Then you've got no choice to do that. And there are pole saws used at the landing as well, just to trim off limbs and things or whatever off the load before they haul out of there. But no, that's a stereotypical description, but it doesn't really apply anymore. Sure doesn't. No.
So now, when it comes to the education, you guys have the ARC Pro Logger training. Right. Guys or people have to have this education, right, before they can go out into the woods.
This is a program that's required, SFI, Sustainable Forestry Initiative requirement, and we have a state implementation committee in Arkansas that's kind of the governing body that kind of sits over that. There's certain standards and objectives within the SFI program, and different standards and objectives, but one of them is the logger education and training. So it is more or less a mandatory requirement that they get this training through the companies that support it, and the companies need the training, because when they have their audits, their third-party audits, one of the audit requirements or processes that is looked at is the training. So they will look and see who of your logging guys out there have been trained up. They need to provide proof of that. So we maintain a database, for example. We issue training certificates yearly. That's good for 1 year. Once they do the 4 modules, we have a continuing education program that requires 6 hours of continuing education each year after they've finished the 4. So Logger A goes in and does all 4. He doesn't have to complete them all in 1 year, but he's got to show proof that he's doing some training, and that certificate is the proof. Some state issues numbers. We've never done that. We've been asked for that, but we've never done that. It's just that certificate that has a date on it and the logger's name that he's been through module 1, a certificate for each module, and then after that he gets one that shows all 4 on it. And then after that, he gets a different certificate that's a continuing education certificate. So it is definitely, and there's been a tremendous amount of support in Arkansas by the SIC member companies. They voluntarily provide funding through our training program and a training fund, and we maintain all that. We have a training council, Logger Education Training Council, that develops and looks periodically at the training curriculum, and that council is made up of both timber company representatives and logging representatives, so that we'll get a more objective view of what's needed from a training standpoint. But I have to commend our SIC members, because they've been, through all these since 1995, have been very, very supportive of the program, financially and otherwise. So, but yes, if you don't get the training, I've had calls where a load was sitting out on the yard and we couldn't get in the yard because he couldn't provide proof of the training. So it actually affects production, or can. And so it's ever stronger now than it ever has been as far as the need for it. It sure is.
So it's a highly important part of just everything that goes on.
Well, it has helped, I think, from a safety standpoint, but also from our BMPs. The BMP success rate has gone up over the years because of the program, I won't say because of the program, but I think the program has been a factor to help that. In our best management practices, our BMP module, it's been helped there, where we do classroom training, but also we'll have field training. For example, go visit a site on water bar preparation or streamside zone management or something like that. So it's been good. It's been for early on. The thought was it's not going to be very well accepted, and it might have been early on, but it's been accepted. It's pretty well. Over these years now, been a pretty successful program. And we, just to pat ourselves on the back, we did get a couple, 3 awards, national awards, over the years up for the training program. The first one came from what used to be called the American Pulpwood Association, which is now the Forest Resources Association. We got 2 awards for that, but we submitted an application, whatever. They determined that our program was worth it, so we can say we've been nationally award claimed for that. But and that's because of our trainers. We had George Lease, who recently retired, and now Arnold Haymaster is on. And Arnold had helped us with BMP workshops, but he's also retired from the Forestry Commission, so he brings on some forester background and other, and he's done a very good job too. But those are the guys that make it happen. But it's a cooperative effort by everybody involved. But yeah.
So let's kind of hop into some of the issues that your members have been facing recently. There's been some things that have been discussed here at AFA that I know Max has been talking with you about before COVID hit, and we'll get to COVID.
Yeah, right.
But what are some of the issues that you guys have been working on over the past year or so?
Well, I think one of the bigger issues is truck liability insurance, the rising cost of what it costs to cover trucking. And we're gradually working on trying to get that work done there. It's a national effort issue. It's not just a state issue, so it's not easily resolved. But one effort we're working into, and we've been kind of delayed now because of the virus with our training program. But we're an educational sponsor for Team Safe Trucking, and we view that as a program that may eventually long-term lead to decreasing these truck insurance rates. And the reason why is when training is completed, you're in a database that can be viewed by insurance companies, and they can go in and track logger A, B, C, or whatever, and see what he's been doing from a training standpoint with the truck Team Safe Trucking modules that you take. There are like 34 or 35 of those modules. in any event, I've had insurance companies at least tell me that that's what they think could happen. That eventually it'll show proof that that would help in trying to show decreased liability. So we're optimistic with that. We'll be pursuing that program more as we get through this situation we're in now. But that's one thing that we're working on pretty heavily, trying to. And I know that there are some major timber companies who are vitally interested in it as well. And so we've been working with them as well to try to launch this program. We've had one session, one training team safe trucking session, and then all this other happened. So we've kind of postponed a lot of our training now because of the COVID-19 issue.
So what is it that brought this issue about? I'm not sure. I'm sure it's not just one thing you can point at. But
no, I think what I have heard over the years, it might have been a situation where the rates stayed the same for so long, and then it finally hit, and the companies just started, and then claims you have a lot of litigation going on, a lot of lawsuits going on, and then either risk or claims, and eventually it's caused the spike in the rates. So it eventually, I guess leveling off over the years, and then finally something's going to hit, and it's But I've heard cases where no claims are all filed, but they still had a 30-40% increase in their insurance rates or whatever, a large increase. So I just heard that kind of anecdotally, that over the years it was at a good rate, stayed that way, and then claims hit, and then finally the market just took off and it went the other direction. But it's not an Arkansas issue; it's nationwide.
Yeah,
and it's just not. It's just something that's going to affect everybody for a long time. But again, team safe trucking is viewed not just by us, but by other states who've gotten involved with it as well. And it's you got to have a laptop, or you can be in the woods and get on your phone if you've got access, and you can do a module like that in the field if you want to. And then it's all recorded in a database. You can pull up everybody. I've been in there. I took a COVID-19 module myself just the other day just to see and it was good. But you watch like a 15, 20-minute video, and then there's a quiz and all that. But we'll be doing a classroom environment type setting for that. And we think that's going to be a better approach, at least for us. So that's what we've done so far with the one.
Yeah. No, this has been talked about. I started in 2018, and AFA just talks with all the other Southern Forestry associations, and that was something that was discussed back in late 2018. And Team Safe Trucking was another group that came and spoke to us at that meeting. So this is something that's been kind of going on for a bit now.
They've come a ways. We had some of their spokespeople come to our annual meeting back 3 or 4 years ago now. At that time, their website wasn't even developed, or they were working on it. But they have come a long ways. Miranda Gowell, who is their special projects coordinator, has done a tremendous job, and she's all over the country making presentations. I sat in on one last year at Green Bay Packaging here. And she's got if you get online and get to their site, it's you take a module, you pass it, you get a certificate right off. You can generate your certificate and print it off, and then of course it goes into the database. So it's a pretty. I think it's got potential. I do, really do. There might be some that don't, but I think overall, give it a try. There's the old saying, "Nothing ventured, nothing gained." So
exactly,
we'll see what happens with it. Yeah.
So let's go into real quick before we touch on COVID-19, the Safe Routes Act that's been discussed here over the past couple months or so, I believe, maybe longer.
It's been going on for a while at the federal level, and I know I just sat in on a FRA webinar last week, I guess it was. They've recently done a study in 6 or 8 states, up in Virginia, I think. I forgot all the states, but bottom line is this. One of the major argument is if you increase the weights, like for example in Arkansas, the maximum weight is 85,000 pounds. If this proposal were to become law, then you could haul the 85,000 on the interstate system to a mill, And the safety part of it is that by doing that, you might have a better direct route than having to go through small communities where it's a safety issue, or areas where there are roundabouts where you try to negotiate with a log truck. And I know this one part of the study was a congressman from Wisconsin rode with a log truck through Green Bay, Wisconsin, and he explains how all that went. It took an hour. I mean, he goes, but that webinar, if you get a chance to go, I think they've got it on their website to look at that, but it speaks in terms of the safety issues and what can be saved by doing that. So, but basically the Safe Routes Act would allow each state to use their maximum weight limit on their interstate system. And as I said, in Arkansas, it would be 85,000. So, there have been proposals where to go to 97,000 pounds and add a sixth axle to the trailer, or to the log truck. But then my whole concern when I looked at that was, how do you get to the interstate if you can't haul the 97,000 on your state roads to get to it? So this frees that up, in my view, where you could go from a state highway to the interstate and haul it. And we think that would not only be safety, but production, and also I think it might help on maybe more low, or I'm trying to think on the driver issue. I think I've read somewhere where it might even help as far as the driver issues, because you're going to be able to haul more that way. And
so the issue, I guess, that kind of started this is that log trucks, and correct me if I'm wrong, log trucks aren't necessarily allowed on the interstate. Is that correct?
You can get on the interstate, but you can haul no more than 80,000 pounds.
80, okay.
Plus, you have to pass what's called the bridge formula, where you got to spec out on the axle so much weight on each tandem axle. So you can haul on the interstate, but you can only haul a max 80. What happens is for fear of not being over, or maybe you don't have scales on your trailer, a lot of times they shorten the load down, so they're hauling less because they can't hit the 80,000 for whatever reason.
And that's why you see more log trucks through some of these smaller communities. I know Conway, Arkansas, there's a lot that come through there, which is the unofficial city of roundabouts, which is another thing we talked about.
There's no other way to go. I mean, if you got no other access to get to the mill or wherever you're hauling, then you've got to go through those smaller communities, and that raises the safety issue and concern with schools and kids and all that. And so it's, that's the only way you can go. And so the thought is, if you had that change, then you wouldn't have to go through those smaller community areas like that.
Okay. So. And now, remind me where that's at right now, the Safe Routes Act.
It's in the Congress. I think that there's been a House and Senate version. It's not gone. They're in committee, but to my knowledge, the latest I've got, the thought is that maybe now may be a good time if they can tie it into something else, because a lot of states have relaxed standards because of the COVID-19 issue to be able to haul a bigger amount, a larger amount rather. So. But don't know if that's going to happen. It's getting more and more steam. The Forest Resource Association supports it. The American Loggers Council, which is a national association that has 24 state members that represents the logging contractors in those 24 states. And by the way, we are a charter member of that group, so we're a member of that association as well. And it's getting some traction, I think, but we'll have to wait and see. It's just you're always going to have the arguments about tearing the roads up and all that, but if you've got those loads spaced out like they're supposed to be, and they would, by the way, let me back up, that would only apply to, I think it's a 150-mile radius.
Oh, yeah, yes.
That's one key point I left out. So it's not all, however long distances. So it's 100. And the other thing is, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it also requires that you spec out. In other words, you'd have to have, in Arkansas, too, you can only carry 37.5, I believe it is, on the tandem axles to meet the 85,000 pound. So you still have to spec out on the axles, I believe, too. So there's some restrictions on it, but it'd be a help. It would help, yeah.
Okay. Well, now let's go into the elephant in the room. COVID-19. Right. That's affected everybody, but how has it affected your members, the logging community specifically?
I think, given the situation with the impact on the market, and I was talking to somebody the other day, in my view, it's not been an impact where crew members are sick. It's been the impact on the market. to where there have been market restrictions, whether it's lesser use of paper because schools closed down, offices closed down, or whatever. That ripples down to less production. So I think one concern is decreased production, where you've had bills either reduced production. So that's been the biggest factor, I think. So when that happens, then loggers are hauling less loads, but they still got the crews to keep, they still got the equipment payments to make, and all that. So that's been the biggest problem. I have heard the other day though that the payroll protection plan has been a big help. In this one instance, this individual was able to set up a separate. He just set up, I think, as a separate account. But the bottom line was all that money went in strictly for payroll, which is what it's supposed to be, as far as I know. But it would kept him from having to dip into other income with the shortages going on and all that. So that was a big help for him too. So that's been a plus for him. And some of the loans have helped too. But I'd say the reduced production is probably the biggest factor.
And again, these are small businesses at the end of the day, so they're facing the same issues that the mom and pop restaurant down the street is facing.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So it's been again, the individual I was talking to about the payroll protection plan, he said something that made a lot of sense. Says if you don't take care of your crew and keep your crew, you don't have to worry about the equipment because you're probably not going to have any. If you don't have if you don't have the work, the operation going. And I never thought about it that way, but that's true. And I have heard too that some of the equipment companies, the financing companies, are giving some relief, I think, on interest payments, that type of thing. So that's been a help. That's been a plus too. So.
And you guys, I'm sure, have been communicating assistance programs just like we have. So
every day when it came out, it's slowed down somewhat now. But I was every day when I'd get something. I did, we're a small operation, only 2 in the office, so I've got someone outside my office. As a matter of fact, she used to be AFA's communications director back years ago. She's in New York now. Courtney Johnson Woods. Courtney was here. Anyway, she does she's my consultant for my web stuff, and I would shoot stuff to her, and she's getting it all. But we were communicating every day just to be transparent, to get everything out so they at least know what's available. And then it was up to them to do if they wanted to do it or not, or go to the bank and try to apply for whatever loans or whatever. So yes, we did, just like you guys. As a matter of fact, I used a lot of your stuff. I
think we used a lot of yours actually. So we're just kind of trading information, which is good.
I was sending your information for Courtney to put out in ours, because to me, there's no pride in authorship. We're just trying to help these guys and get the word out. So that's what we did. Sure did. Yeah, it's been good.
Well, Larry, I want to thank you for joining me today.
I appreciate it very much.
If people want to know more about ATPA or anything that you guys have going on, what's the best way for them to get information?
We've got a website, ArkLoggers, ARKLOGGERS.com. We've got information on that website, and always feel free to call our office. The number there is 501-224-2232.
All right, awesome. Well, Larry, thank you again.
Thank you much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And if you guys want any more information on the Arkansas Forestry Association, as always, you can visit us at arkforest.org. That's ARKFORESTS.org. And we want to give a special thank you to some guy named Rob McCormick for the use of our theme song, The Same Love. That's from his album, The Folkster. You can listen to that on Spotify or wherever you get your music. And I want to do a quick little plug for the other episodes of Voices of Forestry. If this is your first time listening, welcome, first off. But you can go listen to some of our other episodes on our website, or you can listen to us at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Again, thank you for joining us. We'll be back in a month with another topic and another guest, and we appreciate you for listening and sticking with us. In the meantime, I'm Seth Stevenson. Thank you for listening to the Voices of Forestry.